What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Jenks and Ty podcast. It's Ty and I back again this week. Week 2 was a lot of surprises again. Similar to week 1, the NFL season has been nothing short of surprising but exciting at the same time. So getting right into our review of your guys' picks for this past week. I mean, we got Picking Grapes back on top yet again at 23-9. He's doing something right. Unjuicy J, I think he was back up there. Hit of Ranch, Wadler's picks, ESPN fam, Hammers at 19-13, and then you got Ty and I way back down, tied for 10th now at 18-14. So I did end up catching up a little bit, Ty, to you at last week with a couple of the picks.
Tough week last week, a lot of upsets, and I just was not predicting them at all. So rough one for me.
It was rough. And with that being said, I know it was a little bit rougher with the Broncos performance. So how are you feeling about the Broncos performance, and how was your weekend after the Broncos game?
Yeah, obviously I took Denver last week, so that definitely didn't help me in the standings. I think Bo started to look a little bit more comfortable. He had over 200 passing yards, so I think that second pick was obviously a wash. At the end of the game, Hail Mary. That first pick, kind of a bad read, but he started to look a little bit more comfortable against a better defense. Kind of disappointing that we're only scoring 6 points and it's a 13-6 ball game. Looks good on defense, right? But I think coming into this week, it's, can he step up again? Can he, continue to look more comfortable? So some promise in an ugly defensive battle, and the rest of the weekend, I mean, it's just obviously sad. You can't really rebound after a 13-6 ball game against the Steelers. So
yeah, no, I get it. And at least he showed some maturity about it too. Like, press conference afterwards, they asked him, he's like, yeah, I stepped back and threw the pick to the other team. Like, he just owned it. He was just completely honest about that. So you got to love that as a fan.
Yeah, classic Bill Belichick answer right there.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you expect,
Yeah, it's better than, like, I don't know. Off the top of my head, I can't think of any other rookie quarterbacks, but just having that mature reaction is something you want to see. It's a positive.
For sure.
Anyways, getting right into week 3, Thursday night football, we got Patriots, Jets. Not the most exciting in comparison to some of the other Thursday night football games we've had this season so far. But in this one, I mean, the Jets coming off a 24-17 win over the Titans, as well as the Patriots coming off of a tough loss against the Seahawks 23-20 in overtime. And I think the Patriots' goal for this game is really just going to be running that ball all over the Jets defense. They're allowing, at the moment, 155 rushing yards per game, the Jets defense is. And on the flip side, the Jets are going to look to keep the running backs involved, not necessarily only in the rushing game, but also in the passing game, with 3 touchdowns to running backs last week. 2 of them receiving from Aaron Rodgers, 2 rushing, 1 rushing, 1 receiving for Braylon Allen as well, which is a little bit of a surprise for me, at least. And I think Breece Hall, maybe if they can get him rushing against this Patriots defense, that's going to be a key for them to win, because they're only allowing 58 rushing yards a game. So if the Patriots defense can somehow show up and just shut the offense down, the Patriots have a shot. But I'm going to pick the Jets here in this one. What are your thoughts, Ty?
Yeah, I think this is going to be a really interesting game, because this Patriots team has been sneaky, in every game they've kind of been in it. But I agree with you, if they can get Breece going, if they can get Braylon Allen going, last week 2 touchdowns. So I think if they can get those 2 backs going, I think, an Aaron Rodgers-led team, I'm going to take the Jets here.
I like it. All right, next we got the Giants-Browns. What are your thoughts on this one, Ty?
Yeah, this could be ugly. I mean, we've seen the Giants offense not too hot. The Browns, obviously, until they start Jameis Winston, your boy from, New Orleans, I think this offense isn't going to be really clicking, especially without Nick Chubb. But I do think, at the end of the day, this is a bad Giants defense, letting up 125 rush yards to Brian Robinson last week, who's, a good back, but, it's a lot of rushing yards. Plus Jaden kind of is moving around. So I think, the Browns coming in, Deontay Foreman getting a lot of carries last week, kind of taking a big role with Pierre Strong out. Jerome Ford, still, carrying the rock. So I think despite their lackluster passing offense with Deshaun under center, this defense is still, top 5, top 10 defense in the league, very quality defense. And then, on the flip side, I think they're just going to run the ball. And we've seen the Giants struggle in the run game. Aaron Jones scored a touchdown week 1. Again, last week, B-Rob, had a big game. So I think Browns, they tote the rock, they play defense, and they win an old-fashioned football game.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you here. Until they show me otherwise, I'm not picking the Giants to win a game this season. I think the Browns are going to win, just because the Giants, even when they do score touchdowns, they can't They don't have a kicker to kick extra points last week. Like, it's just a mess of an organization and team right now. So I'm going to go the Browns here as well. Next, we got the Bears taking on the Colts in a game where both teams coming off rough losses, and partially just because of lack of offense for both teams. I mean, the Bears defense held them in the game against the Texans the whole entire time and gave the Caleb Williams and the Bears offense a chance to go and win the game. And in a game against the Texans, who obviously are one of the better offenses in the league with CJ Stroud and all the weapons they have over there. But Caleb Williams threw another pick. I think he had 3 on the week, which was not a good look for him or the other rookie quarterbacks at the end of the week. And the Colts, on the other hand, Anthony Richardson, they didn't look good either. I mean, they're going against the Packers team that obviously can't score many points. It was a 16-10 ball game, and the Packers, they had Malik Willis, and I'm not going to hate on Malik Willis, but he's not a starting quarterback in the league that you want to be playing. But for the Colts to just score basically a goose egg, and then they had a last minute touchdown to kind of make the scoreboard look a little bit better. But Anthony Richardson right now, I'm going to try to find the stat real quick. 49.1% completion percentage. Yes, he had a couple good bomb throws last week before week 2, but he just can't throw anywhere from the short range to intermediate range consistently, and he's constantly missing targets due to poor fundamentals, and it's just not a great look. But in this one, I think I'd say they have a better offense than the Bears at this moment in time. I think you get Josh Downs back as well this week. I think that's a big addition for them in the receiver room. Michael Pittman and Alec Pierce are all doing pretty well. So I'm going to go Colts here against the Bears.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to rock with the Bears in this one. I think, defense at the end of the day is going to be the thing that wins. You talked about how poorly both quarterbacks are playing. Caleb just struggling as a rookie, the 2 picks last week, kind of just scrambling around trying to make plays, offensive line just not blocking for him. And then AR, I mean, the completion percentage is terrible. But I think when you match them up against the opposing defense that they're playing, AR has the tougher battle there, not playing well, only hitting these deep balls, playing against, what looks like a top 5 defense in the league right now. We kind of saw this recipe, with the Bears week 1 against the Titans, 2 quarterbacks that, aren't playing too well. Levis, I mean, he's doing all right, and we'll talk about him a little bit later, but these turnovers that he's just kind of forcing. So we saw week 1 of the Bears ended up winning that on special teams and on defense. So I think that's the recipe here again. And so I'm going to take the Bears here.
Yeah, I don't mind the pick at all. I think this game to me is not an easy matchup for either team to pick. So I support the Bears pick as well. All right. Next we got the Texans taking on the Vikings. Ty, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, this is a really interesting one. And the Vikings team has just grown on me a lot. Week 1, it was kind of a wash. They're playing the Giants. You're like, okay, what's this team going to be? Last week, coming in, a huge game against the 49ers. I mean, we had, saw Darnold play very, very well. I mean, some of his stats kind of aided by that huge 97-yard touchdown by Jettas. But I think the bigger story here is this Brian Flores defense, maybe the best defense in the league right now, at least top 5. They're playing, lights out, even with losing Danielle Hunter. I know the 49ers didn't have CMC, but, Jordan Mason's still a quality back. I know Debo's banged up. But again, you're looking at a team that's going to be maybe in the NFC Championship in San Fran. Their stars are loaded. And then week 1, that defense kind of just shut down the Giants entirely. So I think coming to this week, obviously the Texans are a very good team. They've played some tough games against the Colts and the Bears, both teams that we just talked about.
Yeah.
But low scoring game. Stroud wasn't lights out against the Bears defense, and I think this Vikings defense is even better. So I think they kind of can keep him in check. It's probably a low scoring game again, but the way that Darnold's playing right now, I mean, Darnold looks like maybe he's playing top 5 quarterback right now. I mean, him, Derek Carr, Baker Mayfield, all these guys coming out of nowhere. So I think at the end of the day, Darnold plays sound football, turnover-free football. Vikings defense kind of restricts that Texans offense, and I'm going to go with the Vikings here.
Wow. Okay, Ty. I support the pick. I'm not upset with it at all. I think Sam Darnold, he has absolutely surprised everyone. And I think the Vikings defense, like you said, Brian Flores is just leading a great ship right now. And he had someone took a screenshot. He had, I think it was cover 2 or it was Tampa 2 out of double mug, the Madden formation for everyone that plays Madden, their double mug. And it was what the hell is this guy doing? So he's changing things up and the ship is working. But I'm going to go with the Texans here. I think CJ Stroud comes into town. They have too many weapons on offense. I'm confident in their defense as well. On top of it, so many of the Texans here. And we also can oppose 2 games back to back. So I like that as well. Next, we got the Eagles taking on my Saints. The Eagles coming off of a horrible choke job last a few nights ago now against the Falcons in a game where the Eagles basically controlled the whole entire time. Obviously, it wasn't a high scoring game, but they still weren't the Atlanta Falcons offense was unable to do anything, and partially because Kirk Cousins didn't seem like he was himself for the first 3 quarters, at least I would say. He was hitching on quick outs, things like that. Normally, just you take your 3 steps and you throw that ball. You don't just hit, you don't hitch up. He's throwing the ball behind receivers on outs, things like that, giving the Eagles chances at picks. They didn't convert them, but he gave them chances. And on the other side of the ball, you got the Saints, who have shocked everyone as like the Vikings. And the Saints have scored 91 points on offense in the first 2 games, 15 straight drives to start the season. Scoring was absolutely unbelievable. I mean, my dad and I we're in the living room like, what the hell is going on? Because no one expected that against the Cowboys. So the Eagles, the story of the game for them is if Jalen Hurts can run the ball and Saquon can run the ball against the Saints defense, they have a shot at winning. And if the Saints can shut them down, I mean, the Saints last time, Jalen Hurts, we faced each other. Jalen Hurts had 3 rushing touchdowns. So that's obviously got to limit that. If that's able to happen, I think the Saints can win this game. And if the Saints offense continues what it's doing under Clint Kubiak, they'll win. I'm going to go the Saints here.
Yeah, I'm with you here. I think, Philly, like last week, they had a very, very winnable game, right? Like you're talking
Mhm.
about Kirk kind of giving them balls that, could have been turnovers. He can't move. Like,
Yeah.
what they're doing. Atlanta's offense was very predictable again, like under center, they're going to run the ball. So I think this Philly defense is just like, not what we thought it was going to be under Vic
Mhm.
Fangio. Vic Fangio comes in, he's a great defensive coordinator, but I just don't think he has some of the pieces. We even saw Slay kind of just get toasted by Drake London at the end of the game there. So I think this defense is kind of a wash. And going against this Saints offense, that's like surprise. I mean, everyone. Alvin Kamara last week playing like a dog. Shout out to him, winning me my fantasy game. Derek Carr's playing lights out. Rashid Shaheed kind of coming out of nowhere. I mean, we kind of knew him. He's kind of a guy, but this year's really popping out. So I think
Yeah.
this offense easily overpowers this defense. And then when it comes to the other side of this, I don't think Saquon's going to be dropping balls, and I don't know if the biggest thing is, can we trust Jalen? Right, like
Yeah.
he's he can run the ball, and he looked great against Atlanta. But then at the end of the game, in a clutch situation, you have so much time on the clock. You only need like 30 yards to get a field goal, and he throws a terrible ball that gets picked
Yeah.
off. So I just
Terrible.
don't think that we can trust Jalen to play turnover-free football. I think the Saints team, you know, pretty good defense, but lights out offense right now, and I think they kind of go into Philly, and I think they roll. I think they roll maybe worse than they did last week against Dallas because I think that Dallas team is better than this Philly team. So I think this could. I'm with you here, Jenks. Like I think this could be. I think this could be a bad game. I think Saints could blow them out.
I'm excited. If they can do that, I think they move up on even more people's power rankings, which would be awesome. Next, we got the Chargers taking on the Steelers. A pretty big defensive battle here. What are your thoughts, Ty?
Yeah, I think the Chargers have looked pretty good so far this season, but I think they're kind of, they played pretty bad teams. I don't think the Raiders are as good as they, last week. I don't know what that game was in Baltimore. We'll talk about Baltimore later, but I don't think the Raiders are a very good football team. Obviously, the Panthers maybe the worst team in the NFL. Playing Bryce Young, who just got benched. So I think this Chargers team coming in. I know J.K. Dobbins has been lights out. I know he's been able to run the ball really well, but you're coming in against the Steelers defense that's lights out. Held Denver to 6 points last week. They held Atlanta to I think 15 or 13 week one.
Mhm.
So they're coming in. No one has scored 20 points on them, and Justin Fields is just playing again turnover free football, something that Jalen Hurts hasn't been able to do. He's not doing anything lights out. He's just avoiding sacks. Scrambling away like last week against Denver. I mean, there was like 3 or 4 times we had him dead to rights, and he's just running away from
Yeah.
guys. So I don't think this Chargers defense is as good as Atlanta's or as good as Denver's. So I don't think they're going to be able to bottle him in. I think the Steelers just, they play Mike Tomlin football, right? They go out there, they don't turn the ball over on offense. Maybe they, kick a bunch of field goals. Chris Boswell, too, he's been so slept on. Like, he's really helped this team just hitting
Mhm.
bombs all year. So I think they kind of come in here, bottle up this Chargers defense or offense, excuse me, that's looked really, really good the first 2 weeks, but it's just against bad teams. So I'm gonna go with the Steelers here, just because I think Mike Tomlin, this defense, they're lights out, and the offense will be just enough.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with you here. I think obviously we saw last week J.K. Dobbins went off yet again, and then Quentin Johnston also went off as well. But against the Steelers defense where they can shut down J.K. Dobbins and they're gonna have to rely on this passing game, I don't see it working out very well. The receivers aren't very great yet. Obviously, you got Lad McConkey, who's a young receiver looking to make his name in the NFL, but that's not occurring yet. And I think this defense is gonna do well over enough to get them in the point where they just need to score maybe a touchdown, maybe two, and then like a couple field goals, and that'll win the game. So I'm going to go with you here. I'm going to go the Steelers. Next, we got your Broncos taking on the Buccaneers. This is a big game for the Saints fans out there. So, Ty, what do you think about this one?
Yeah, so I think Tampa, I mean, from what we've seen from them thus far, Baker Mayfield, I mean, he's looking like an MVP candidate, playing kind of lights out football. That juke he had to score that rushing touchdown last week against Detroit was filthy.
Yeah.
And we've just seen this team dominate when they should, right? They dominated, Washington week 1, and as they should, right? The Commanders are going to be maybe a decent to bad football team this year. And then I think the biggest story was coming into Detroit last week. They had a really good matchup last year, but this Detroit team is just loaded. And to win a close ball game like that, the way that Baker's playing, Chris Godwin's looked lights out.
Mm.
What you're getting with Mike Evans week in and week out, year in and year out. He's a 1,000-yard guy. We've seen Rashad White, Bucky Irving get some run, but on the flip side, as a Denver fan, I have a lot of hope this week, just because I've seen the way that Bo has, progressed over time. I think a problem this week might be, Mike McGlinchey being out on IR for 4 weeks. We're starting Alex. I think his name is Palaszczuk. I don't really know how to say his last name, but a young right tackle coming in could pose a problem. But Bo, he's athletic enough; he'll move around. And I just think he's, again, as I mentioned at the beginning of this, I think he's going to continuously progress week in and week out. Sean's going to try to make the offense better for him. I think the biggest thing this week that we got to see from Denver, no drops and no penalties, right? Like there were so many penalties last week, and then just balls that our tight ends are dropping. Nate Adkins drops a nice ball on the sideline. Greg Dulcich had like 3 drops in the game.
It's terrible.
So help your rookie quarterback out, right? Like I know he
Mhm.
had some overthrows and he's the picks, but like if you take all those simple mistakes out, it's a whole different ball game because we're in better position to kick field goals, get touchdowns, whatever it may be, just score points. Like that's the name of the game, score points, right? 13-6 ball game last week. We score 1 touchdown. It's a whole different ball game. So I think Denver, Sean Payton, they're probably going to stress, just the little things this week, eliminating all those small mistakes. I'm gonna go with Denver here as a homer, but I think it's gonna be a tough game. I mean, because the way that Tampa's playing, they look like a top 5 team in the league right now. Denver's defense is really good. This is their biggest test by far. Trying to stop Baker's again, looking like an MVP, but I'm gonna go with Denver here just because I have confidence that the offense is gonna make less mistakes and that Bo will continue to progress to be you know a top quarterback. So I'm gonna go with
Yeah,
Denver.
I wish I could tell you here. I wish I could go with the Broncos because this is the only time I'm gonna say where I hope that you're right and I'm wrong. I'm gonna go the Buccaneers here. I just think the Broncos, yes, there is progress to be made, and I think it's capable with Bo Nix, but I just think at this moment in time against this team, I don't know if it's gonna happen. So I'm gonna go the Bucks, but I hope that I'm wrong. I'll say that. Next we got the Packers Titans. I'm gonna try to keep this one a little bit short because there's not too much to say because I think the Packers are gonna have Jordan Love this week. So that's a lot different than what they had last week. The Titans, on the other hand of the ball, Will Levis does not know how to make no mistakes in a game. Like he in the Jets game this past week, he obviously had a play where he's running around scrambling and then he tries to jump over someone and kind of like flick the ball backwards to I think it was Tyjae Spears in the backfield, not Tony Pollard. Um, Obviously Spears was not expecting it because he's 5 yards in the backfield and either you throw the ball away or you take the sack for less of a loss than what Tyjae Spears is at. And he throws the ball backwards and it's a yard short. It hops to him and it's a fumble, live ball. Jets get it in the red zone. And obviously, Callahan on the sideline was pissed off. What the F are you doing to to Will? So it wasn't a great look for the Titans at all. If they can cut down on those mistakes, they could have been 2-0. I mean, he single-handedly threw the ball away and the game away to the Bears. And in this game, they could have beat the Jets if they did score in the red zone in that possession. But I'm going to go the Packers here in this one. I think Jordan Love comes back. their offense is going to be back humming again like it was against the Eagles, and I think they win this game over the Titans.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like, we just can't take the Titans until we see that Will Levis can get rid of these bonehead plays.
Mhm.
Like, I can't even say like that, play turnover free football because it's not even like, he's forcing a ball into a tight window or,
Yeah,
kind of hanging the ball out and fumbling. It's just like stupid plays that Brian Callahan is like, just ripping him apart for. So I think, whether it's Jordan Love or Malik Willis, I mean, just the way that we saw the Green Bay play with Malik Willis last week, Green Bay is just the better football team. Even if Jordan Love can barely move, I still think that he's going to throw the ball all over the place. Josh Jacobs looked really good, so I think Green Bay is the easy pick here, just until we see Will Levis play turnover-free football.
yeah, I gotta agree with you here. And then next game, I mean, you got the Panthers taking on the Raiders. Andy Dalton coming in. What are your thoughts on this one, Ty?
Yeah, I mean, this is a toilet bowl for sure. I would like to think that, maybe Carolina looks a little bit better with Andy Dalton coming in, like you said, that veteran presence. I think
Mhm.
Bryce absolutely just rattled in there, and I don't think everything was like his fault. I think he's put into a bad situation. I think they have decent weapons, but their line's not that great. They don't really have a running game. Defense is bad, so I think he's just in a shitty situation. But I think if Andy Dalton can be that veteran presence, maybe they look a little bit better. But they're going against the Raiders team that Max Crosby's probably going to eat them alive.
Yeah.
And then on the offensive side of things, like Devontae Adams again will be someone that eats them alive. So I think this is pretty easy. Raiders come in, with Gardner Minshew, another veteran quarterback, against a young, not that great team in Carolina. So I'm going to go with the Vegas Raiders here.
Yeah, nothing else to add here. I'm going to the Raiders as well. You said it all, Ty. Next, you got the Dolphins taking on the Seahawks. Skylar Thompson making his debut of the season, at least, with Tua out. He played, I think it was in 2022 when Tua got hurt, and he has one touchdown and 3 picks in his career. So it's not horrendous, but it's not great. Obviously, it's not what you want to see as a Dolphins fan going in this game against one of the better defenses in the league at this point in time. McDonald got the defense humming on the Seahawks, and I think they're upset, or not upset, but overtime win over the Patriots last week, as well as their win in week one, just to show that they are a gritty football team that is a defensive minded team that has a solid enough offense to go and win games. And I think JSN and DK's performances last week showed that without a run game, even they can still be a solid offense. Zach Charbonnet is going to look to get back going again in this game. I mean, the Dolphins, James Cook ate them up on both the receiving side of the ball and rushing side of the ball. So if Seahawks can get Charbonnet involved, I think the Seahawks will run away with this one. I'm going to go Seahawks.
Yeah, not much else to add here, right? Like Skylar Thompson comes in, he's not a quality NFL player. I think he's fine enough to be a backup on a team like this. And he's aided a lot by having Tyreek and Waddle and A-Chain, guys like that. But I just don't think it's again enough, like you said, to overcome the
Yeah.
Seattle defense that's looked really, really good so far. Mike McDonald's doing wonders over there. And then just on the flip side, right, this offense got destroyed last week by Buffalo. Seattle's not Buffalo, but they have a lot of options. DK and Jackson Smith and Jigba looked insane last week.
Mhm.
I think Charbonnet just gets rolling, and I think this is pretty easy. Seattle here.
Yeah, I have to agree. Next, we got the Lions taking on the Cardinals. This is, after last week, shaping up to be actually a pretty solid game. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, this Arizona team looks scary. Like week one, they play a Buffalo team that might be the best team in the NFL. We'll talk about that in a bit, but they looked lights out against them, and then they come in, after not having really Marvin Harrison involved in that week one, and it was insane. I mean, I know the Rams team is banged up and stuff like that, but to see what they did with Marvin Harrison just on those
Mhm.
first like 2 drives, like 4 catches, 131 yards, 2 touchdowns, to absolutely blow the Rams out, right? Like I think, we knew that this was going to be tough for the Rams coming in with some injuries on defense and then a ton on offense and then Cooper Cup getting hurt in that game. But I don't think we expected to see that much from Arizona. Kyler's looked really, really good with this new offensive coordinator. He's moving around, and then just adding in Marvin Harrison is just insane. On the flip side, we've seen Detroit just kind of struggle out the gate. The first week they had that overtime game against the Rams, albeit a healthier Rams team. But then this past week, again, losing to another quality team. But if you listen to Dan Campbell at the end of the game, he's like, I asked this team to clean up on the boneheaded mistakes that we made in week one, and then we come into week two. and they do, but then I make the boneheaded mistakes, and they're just too much risk on the Detroit team, like a fake punt from your 10, like I know you get it, right? But like that's not always going to work. That's like a 1 out of like 50 chance that that actually works. So I think Arizona is just playing really, really good football right now. Um, and I think they're playing a good team. I think Detroit's still a good team, right? I think they're struggling out the gate, but I think they'll figure it out. I just don't think it's now, right? Like I think you don't figure it out against another good opponent. You figure it out against a team that's bad. You roll them, you score 40 on them, and whatever. So I think Arizona. I'm going to go with Arizona here, just because they have looked so good, and Detroit has just looked a little shaky out the gate.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you here. I was expecting to pick the Lions. I was kind of excited. I was gonna get another pick different than you, but I love the Cardinals here. I mean, they came out in the game against Buffalo. I mean, they looked solid in that one too, until they obviously the Bills and Josh Allen came out and just erupted in the third and fourth quarters. But the Cardinals looked great, and last week showed it. So I'm going to go the Cardinals here as well. That the Lions don't look great for the first 2 weeks. Obviously, they almost choked against the Rams, and then this past week against the Buccaneers, they led in every single category on offense, and they still didn't win the game. So I don't love that. I'm going to go the Cardinals as well. Next, we got the Ravens taking on the Cowboys. The Cowboys reeling after a absolute disgusting loss against the Saints at Jerry's World. And so they're back at Jerry's World against another team that can run the ball. And I think that's the biggest story for this game is, can they stop the run game of the Baltimore Ravens? And my answer is going to be no. I mean, they led 190 rushing yards to the Saints, and the Ravens obviously could debatably have a better running game. Obviously, Derrick Henry hasn't looked the same this year so far, but I think this game is where they kind of get him rolling. They're just going to hand him the rock numerous times. And I think Lamar Jackson, when they're fighting too hard on Derrick Henry, they're just going to run Lamar Jackson the opposite way. So I think this game is going to be a pretty tough game for the Cowboys to come up with a win. I'm going to go the Ravens taking home a W in Jerry's World.
Yeah, I mean, I totally get what you're saying here with Baltimore's run game, because they add a different aspect to the run game than New Orleans has, with Lamar Jackson obviously being an athletic option. But I think again, we just really haven't seen this offensive line like mesh. Week 1 they struggled a
Yeah,
lot, and then last week to lose to the Raiders, I mean, that is like
it's tough.
it was utterly shocking, right? Like I said last week, I think like they're gonna roll. Like this is the team. This
Mhm.
is when they figure it out. The O line meshes, and they just destroy the Raiders. Right? The Raiders are not a good team. And then we go look at this game, right? Max Crosby wrecks havoc, and I think that is the big thing, right? Like having an elite edge rusher, and that's what Dallas has. I think Micah can be a problem for this team. I think last week, I think you're underselling the Saints a bit, which is crazy as a Saints fan, right? But like, I think the Saints team like might be top 3, top 5 team in the league. So I think last week's game for Dallas, like a bit of a fluke. I think they get the ball rolling here a little bit. I do think it depends a little bit on is CD available? I know he was a
Mhm.
little banged up this week. I think he didn't practice today. So if CD's a go, I think that's what changes this game. I think Dallas can pull it out. If CD's not a go, though, I don't think Dallas has the weaponry to keep up with what Baltimore can
Mhm.
do. Like Lamar's going to make Lamar plays, and they're going to score points at the end of the day. So I'm going to go with Dallas, assuming that CD's going to suit up. But if CD doesn't suit up, this is an entirely different ball game. So just
Yeah.
something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind that takeout. I think the key for like the Cowboys is like they're built to play from ahead. Like if they're behind at all, the offense just falters because you could not double team, but you can focus on CD, kind of shut him down, and then obviously at Brandon Cooks, but that's not a extremely reliable guy to help lead a comeback. So I see what you're saying here, and Micah Parsons could definitely wreak havoc and wreck this game. So we'll see what happens. Next, we got the 49ers taking on the Rams in LA. This one could be rough. What do you think on this one, Ty?
Yeah, I mean, the same story for the Rams again this week, right? Like I said last week, they are so banged up. I think another one of their offensive linemen got hurt this week. I think
Mhm.
Jonah Jackson got hurt, and they lose Cooper Cup. Fortunately, I think he's going to avoid the IR, but probably out 2 or 3 weeks. So, they're coming into this game with Tyler Johnson, Demarcus Robinson, and like Jordan Whittington, Tutu Atwell. That mix on offense is just not going to be able to keep up
Yeah.
with this San Fran defense, right? Like San Fran's a little bit banged up too. CMC's out, Debo's out, but their defense is healthy, and I think that's what's going to be the big difference maker here, as we saw last week there with Arizona. The Rams just couldn't score against Arizona, and like Arizona's defense is nowhere even like close to as good as San
Yeah.
Fran's is. And then on the flip side, right, like we saw the Rams, they're down a couple corners, and they got absolutely torched by Kyler and Marvin. And I know, again, no CMC, no Debo, but still, Ayuk, I think he's going to get fed. Kittle's going to have a day. George Mason's looked good, and Jawan Jennings is like a serviceable receiver. I think he'll be fine enough. I just think, I think Brock, like last week, like, he kind of struggled. Minnesota's defense is really, really good. So I think, just coming in, this is a game, as I talked about earlier, right? Those statement games. Like, I don't think
Yeah.
Detroit can make a statement game against another good team. I think this is where San Fran takes advantage of like a really, really bad team and has their statement game. They bounce back. Defense shuts down the Rams offense. Matt Stafford's not going to be really able to do much without much on offense. And then on the flip side, I think, Brock comes out. I think he plays a good game. I think he probably has a couple touchdowns. Ayuk finally bounces back and stops pissing off Peyton Manning and catches some balls in the end zone. So I think I'm going to go with the 49ers here, excuse me, just because the Rams are dealing with so many injuries right now.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you on this one. I thought the Rams, I was like, Rams are good. Matt Stafford's solid. Their injuries aren't gonna hinder them. And now they have more, and they sucked last week. So I'm gonna go the 49ers here as well. Even though they're a little banged up, it's not gonna hurt them too bad. Next we got the Chiefs take on the Falcons. Obviously this game, I mean, the Falcons shouldn't have won last week. It pissed me off so much as a Saints fan watching that game. Just the Eagles just throw the ball or throw the game away by throwing the ball to Saquon in that third down. Didn't really seem like the smartest option. Obviously, it's not a terrible play design, everything like that. If he caught it, he could have gotten the first down, possibly a touchdown. But he drops it, it stops the clock. You're giving a minute 44 to the Falcons to go score a touchdown. That's a lot of time, and I didn't love the decision there, but you run the ball like they had been all game, they might get a first down with Saquon that way too. So I think the Eagles should have beat the Falcons last week, and the Falcons should be 0-2 going in this game. The Chiefs, on the other hand of the ball, other side of the ball, go out and they beat the Bengals. Obviously, it was a debatable ref show. Like people are like, "Oh, the refs won the game for the Chiefs," but they didn't. I mean, it was a pass interference that should have been called. And if it wasn't called, if it was like the Bengals that didn't get called on, everyone been like, "Oh, the refs are calling it for the Chiefs." So it's just either side that whatever happened in that game was going to be overblown. But I think the Chiefs deserved to win that game, and they did. And they still look solid. They're obviously the three-peat contender for this season. So I'm gonna go with Chiefs here over the Falcons in a game where I think the Falcons obviously can put up a solid game and make it kind of close, but I think the Chiefs are still gonna win.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like, I think this could be a close game because if you think about what we've seen from Kansas City these first
Mhm.
2 weeks, right? Like a close game against Baltimore in a game where Baltimore hadn't even got Mark Andrews involved yet. The line looked terrible. Derrick Henry couldn't do anything. And then we look into week 2, right? Bengals team defense doesn't look great. T. Higgins, not involved.
Yeah,
And then the big thing here with KC, right? Like Pacheco breaking his leg is terrible for them, right? Because
yeah, not
okay,
good.
we're looking at Carson Steele, right? Undrafted guy. He's looked pretty good. I think he'll be able to tote the rock.
He does look solid.
Can't catch the ball. Samaje
Yeah.
Perine, he's your guy that's going to catch the ball. 3 fumbles last year with Denver. He gets cut in the preseason because he drops a ball that turns into an interception against Indianapolis. So that's your third down guy. Maybe we have Kareem Hunt play a little bit.
Yeah.
Keontae Ingram. I don't think this team, unless Carson Steele kind of surprises us a little bit, I don't think this team is going to really be able to dominate until they get Clyde back in week 5 if he becomes an option for them, and then eventually if Pacheco comes back, because you're going to know that this team is probably going to throw the ball to Rashee Rice, to Xavier Worthy. Don't have Hollywood Brown for the whole season.
Yeah.
Kelsey's looked
He
halfway decent.
he has
You know,
4 catches for 39 yards this year, which is crazy.
right. So like I think this KC team, like it's not, when we think about Cincinnati, Baltimore, and KC, like these are not the teams that we've seen in the past. They're not like as dominant. And I think since he can get there, I think they can all get there, right? But I think similar to Detroit, like they're just slow out the gate. And then on the flip side, we see Atlanta like didn't look fantastic last week, but you saw
Yeah.
Kirk be able to be a little bit more comfortable. And I think week by week he's gonna get a little bit more comfortable. And then Bijan and Algier just running all over them. So I do think, like, this could be a close game. At the end of the day, I'm gonna take the Chiefs as much as I hate that I'm taking the Chiefs. Like, it really kills me. Um, I just think Mahomes is too good, but I think if Kirk can feel comfortable in this game and just knowing, like, that Casey struggled, like, this could be a really, really close game, just like you said, but I'm gonna go Chiefs, unfortunately.
Yeah, we'll see how it turns out. It is an interesting Sunday night football game for sure. Next, we got Monday Night Football. The Jaguars taking on the Bills, arguably the best team in football. What are your thoughts on this one, Ty?
Yeah, I mean, just like you said, right? Bills arguably the best team in football, and Jacksonville like struggles, like out the gate,
Mhm.
like 0-2. They've just looked bad in both their games. There's nothing that's been really promising for them, and I don't know if like this might be a team that like doesn't figure it out this year, right? Like and
Mhm.
ends up struggling the whole year and ends up with a high draft pick that maybe has some turnaround next year. But I don't know. I just think Buffalo, their defenses look lights out, and I think it's going to bottle in Trevor Lawrence and ETN and all those guys. Like we've seen them kind of be bottled in this whole year, right? Cleveland bottled them in, Miami bottled them in, and Miami got dog walked last week by
Yeah.
this Buffalo team. I know Tua kind of got hurt and all that stuff, but I mean, at that point, right, the game was already over. So I
Yeah.
think Buffalo just comes in, they dominate. Josh Allen's looked lights out. James Cook, I mean, he's looked insane. Like 3 touchdowns last week. Like
Mhm.
that's, lights out for him too. And like I said, the defenses look really, really good under that young defensive coordinator they have with McDermott kind of giving up the play calling. So, I just think Buffalo's too good. Like you said, they're the best team in football right now. And Jacksonville's just they don't look good. So I think this first half of the Monday night doubleheader might be pretty bad. I'm gonna go with Buffalo here.
Yeah, nothing else to say. I'm going to go the Bills here as well. Home game for them. I think the stadium's going to be rocking. I'm going to go the Bills. Next, we got the second Monday Night Football game. The Commanders taking on the Bengals in Cincinnati. Obviously, the Bengals, the big story of the week was, can they look better against the Chiefs than they did week one against the Patriots? And they did. Their offense came out. Joe Burrow had 2 touchdowns. It was like 250 yards, no picks. They look solid. And now you come into this game, and the Commanders, they beat the Giants. Not a big story there, and it was all due to field goals. They didn't score a touchdown. So that's not a great story for the Commanders offense. The Bengals defense, all they have to do is shut that down. Jaden Daniels obviously looks solid. I think he's probably the best looking rookie quarterback at the moment, and he doesn't have much to show for it. So it's like it's not really too big of a story right now. Obviously, I think the story of this game will be the Commanders defense. If they can shut down the Commanders or the Bengals offense, they have a shot. But I just think the Commanders pass defense is not great, not good enough to stop this passing offense for the Bengals. They have no picks. They're 10th in yards per pass this season, and they're second in completion percentage to opposing teams. So I think the Bengals and Joe Burrow are looking to kind of gain more comfort in this game, get to 1-2 on the season, and move on as they go on throughout the rest of the year. I'm going to do the Bengals here in this one.
Yeah, I mean, similar, like I know I was saying since he like kind of, hasn't looked great, but they played really, really well against a way better team last week against Kansas City. I think Commanders last week were like 0-7 or something in the red zone.
Yeah.
I think this team can score more than 7 field goals worth of points. I mean, we saw it last week, right? Against defending back-to-back Super Bowl champs. They're able to score more than 21. So I think, yeah, keep it short and sweet. I think Joe comes in. I think he plays like Joe Cool, and they roll the Commanders.
Awesome. Yeah, so that'll do it for our week 3 picks. Real quick before we leave, Ty, what are your top 5 teams at this point in time? Let's hear it.
Yeah, so at number 5, I'm gonna go Tampa. Unfortunately, that's a bad news for Denver coming in this week. But as we said, Baker Mayfield looking like an MVP candidate. This team's just playing really, really well. At number 4, I'm gonna go with Arizona. I know they lost week 1, but the team that they lost week 1, we'll talk about here in a second. But they've looked good, and if they can keep Marvin Harrison involved, they're going to be really, really dangerous. Number 3, I'm going to go with the Saints. Your boys, they've looked insane to start the season. Did not expect this at all. Derek Carr's looked really, really good. Alvin Kamara's rolling. I think this team, they're in a tough division with Tampa, right? But I just think they're the better football team than them too. So I think they'll be able to roll through that division. And then at 2, I'm going to go with KC. You can't count them out. I know I've said, oh, they kind of struggled against Baltimore and Cincy week 1 and week 2, but still good football teams. They're the back-to-back defending champs. So unfortunately, again, I have to go with KC at 2. And then at 1, it's clearly Buffalo, right? And like that's I think the big pull for Arizona is that they lost to the number 1 team. Like
Yeah.
when I was thinking through it, I was like maybe Houston, maybe Minnesota. Think about who they played though. Like I don't know about San Fran right now. So I think, Buffalo is really, really good. And for Arizona to have competed the way that they did with Marvin Harrison not involved at all, pretty much, like I think that's what puts them at 4. And then Buffalo, I mean, they're just it's clear as day, right? Everyone in the country thinks this is the best football team in America right now. So that's my top 5.
Yeah, I don't have much to argue. I will say, like, your point against about the Cardinals is great. I think Marvin Harrison Jr., if he was involved in the game against the Bills, they could have won. I mean, everyone saw the one play where he was wide open on the sideline. Maybe if you hit him on that, maybe they win the game. My top 5, a little bit different. I'm gonna go top or 5. I got the Buccaneers, Tampa Bay. I think what Baker's got going on over there, the defense is playing almost lights out, and they did it against the Lions, the defending almost NFC Championship winner. And then I got 4. I got the Saints, my team. Let's go. The offense has surprised everyone. I mean, when you ask Saints fans going into the year, we were way down here on hope. Now we have like Super Bowl hopes. We're like, oh shit, we're going to the Super Bowl, but we'll see how that plays out. And it's only week 2. And then 3, I got the Chiefs. I think they're obviously 3-peat contenders for the season. And I think their offense, it hasn't looked great, but once they get Travis Kelce involved, they can do really big things. 2, I got the Texans. They have too many weapons and a solid defense that I think this is the right spot for them at this point in time. And then at 1, I got the Buffalo Bills as well. The Bills are just seemingly unstoppable with Josh Allen. I said before the season, I think that Josh Allen's going to win MVP just because obviously everyone's like, oh, they lost a couple things. They lost Stephon Diggs, but now Josh Allen's coming out. He's on his own. Like yes, he still has some good players and solid weapons, but this is really his chance to show that he is the MVP and most valuable player in the league. So Bills are on top. I think that'll do it. Ty, you got any closing thoughts for this week? Any predictions or overreactions that you want to get out before we end the episode?
Yeah, I mean the one overreaction that I'm really just shocked about is like how high you had Houston. I think like they've struggled those first 2 weeks. Not struggled, but had really close games against 2 teams that I don't know how good they are. So I think Houston, they have a lot of talent, but I just think we're a little bit high on them. I think that maybe is my overreaction, right? Like the Houston, they're 2-0 and they have so many weapons and they're a great Madden team, right? But I think we'll have to see how they play against the Minnesota Vikings this week. I think Minnesota. I think they could humble them a little bit, and maybe that helps them catch their stride late in the season. I know that's a really good football team, but I just think I mean, and the game before that, right? The Chicago Colts game, that'll be telling too. If that's like a really, really bad game, then we'll be talking about Houston a little bit differently. So I think that's my overreaction. Just the Houston team is that high.
No, I like that you bring it up because I think this week is the biggest telling week for all these power rankings. Obviously, all of our teams. The Bills come out, they lose to the Jaguars. That could change things. If the Texans come out and lose to the Vikings move up, Texans move down a lot. The Saints,
the Cardinals with the Lions,
the Cardinals, like all of these rankings are set up to change this week, and it's a very telling week for all of NFL. So I'm really excited. As always, thanks for tuning in. And Ty, thanks for coming on. Make sure to check out our social medias at Jenks Hammer Pod. You can check out Twitter I think I put my power rankings out earlier today on there, Jenks Hammer Pod, and Instagram, TikTok for our reels. And check out our podcast at Jenks the Hammer on YouTube, Spotify, wherever you get podcasts. We'll see you guys next week.